Hmm.
So I want to introduce everybody to a phenomenal realtor here at our neighborhood, Katya Lameiras. And maybe I'm just going to open it up, hun. I can tell you my observations of this amazing realtor. As I mentioned to you, Crystal, this is a
Hmm.
realtor that has always done really good business, then entered into being a mom.
Hmm.
And was like, okay, now I'm a mom. Now I'm a realtor. How do I make that work? And then became a mom again. And as I sat and watched you, Katya, develop in between how to put your family first, as well as being a full time realtor, and then still self check yourself and go, well, wait a minute. What am I doing? What am I not doing to make these leads work for me a little better? So, can you, Katya, introduce yourself to everybody and kind of give them your background, how long you've been in the market or how long you've been a realtor and where you found you had to do that? Okay, wait a minute. I got to self check because it's me. And we're going to give you the
Okay.
floor.
So I've been in the industry for about 8 years. It wasn't always full time. I'd say probably full time the last 5 years. But I've had like a lot of change within that period. Like I became a mom for the first time. So I kind of took some time off there. And then COVID happened. So that was super weird. And then I had another kid. So I would say come November is like where I really like kind of rejigged my business. I've always in the last 10 years, I've been living like on the West End. I just recently moved back to Clarington like 2 years ago. So really after I finished my last mat leave and I started going into work full force again, I kind of treated myself as a brand new agent because I was in a new area. Like I grew up in Clarington, but I really haven't done much. I hadn't done much business at that time in Clarington. It was all in Toronto and West,
Yeah.
which with now having two small kids, like it was important for me to like, like work a little bit closer to home if possible. So I would say like come November is when like everything kind of changed for me. I had to change like my mindset, the way that I was started doing my business and taking care of my leads. Like they've always kind of been there. I've been lucky enough to have like a really good sphere around me that it's always kept me really busy. But now working in a new area, these leads were kind of like my way to get into the Durham market. So I had to nurture those a lot more. And it's taken me some time, but I feel like over the last few months I've gotten into a really good groove. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much it for now.
So your aha moment was you were in the West End of the GTA and you had a significant amount of sphere of influence that kind of kept you busy and working as a realtor. But your aha moment, if I'm hearing the takeaway, was now you're back to an area that you haven't lived in a number of years. And now your reliance on the Google pay-per-click leads really needed to be in check, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, prior to you doing that self-check, going, okay, like it's time, I gotta work. What was your experience like with the leads prior to that? Were you converting that much, or did you feel like you weren't working them like you should or could have?
Um, I didn't convert them before. Up until November, I believe, is when I started really actually being in the car with these people. I think before that, it was kind of like, I had great conversations. I had a lot of people like on my radar, but I don't think I was putting as much into it as I should have because I didn't know. I was also on maternity leave and I just, I had it for like a while, but I just wasn't like really diving in. Whereas come November, when I decided, no, it's time to like go back to work full force, I kind of was like, okay, well, where do I start? Like I've been on maternity leave. Before that, I had like a really bad pregnancy. So I was bedridden for most of the time before that. So, I was like really, really felt like I was starting fresh, but I didn't know like where to start. And I was just like, okay, well, I have these leads. Like, I have them all on like the drip campaign that Tara has, which is amazing. And it's kept me in like, when I was really busy, it kept me in contact with these like all these leads, and it was pretty automatic, and it was a great way to like stay like on top of it in that sense. But I felt like I needed to figure out like what my process would be, right? So I guess over time I've kind of layered things onto it. So I have like the drips going on. So when I get a new lead, I automatically put them on the drip campaign, and then depending on the frequency on our website, I might call them like right away. Or I might just do like soft touches. Like it really depends on the lead and like how active they are, and like, you know, how often they're looking at properties, and I kind of base it on that. So I feel like over time I've really like layered my process. And it's been working really well for me so far. Like I'm working with a family now. I've had them on my system for over 3 years. And I talked to him the first time I called him. We've spoken on via email, but I decided in January when I was like, okay, back in the office full time, I need to call all of my people. I think I had like 400 leads, and I was like, I'm going to call everybody. So I called him, had a great conversation with him. I say he's a serial liker because he literally was always like this property viewed 3 times. And I was like, okay, I can't keep sending him these same emails saying, oh, do you want me to show you this property because you liked it? But now I'm working with him and his family, and I've had him on the system for over 3 years.
Wow.
I have a listing at the moment, and he came on the system. Oh, did I cut out there?
No, you're just acting again differently.
Okay. I had him on the system on Monday, and he was pretty active. So I had called him right away, and on Wednesday I went for a listing appointment. The following Wednesday I listed the house, and he was a really quick lead. He had just come on the system.
And you called him right away?
I did, because he was really active.
Wow. So it's, you know, it's interesting to me, and Crystal, here we have another example. And you and I have talked at great lengths about this, Katya, even when you were pregnant with your first daughter, about how important those re-login notifications can be to the conversion process. Because
it's like my bread and butter.
Right? This guy was brand new on, but he was on and looking and looking and looking and looking. And she was like, okay, something's going on. I'm going to make a call. Right?
Yeah.
And now they're in the car. That is incredible. There is as well, I think, Katya, another layer, and she's extremely humble, this one, Crystal, let me tell you. Making calls for Katya is not easy. It wasn't easy. And there was a new member that joined her team who was really into talking to people on the phone. It was very comfortable, is very comfortable, right, girl, for him.
Yeah.
And he would freely, because they have a team office here at the brokerage, he'd be sitting right behind her. You see where she is. He sits right behind her, and he would be calling, and having good conversations. And remember, Katya, you were like, I won't be able to come across like that. Yeah. And he sat with you and said, sit with me, let's do it together. And what happened?
Well, my first call that I called like the oldest person on my system. I think it was like over 1,300 days. And we had a great conversation. Like I had this in my head that people were just going to be rude and hang up and they didn't want to talk to me. But it was funny because I only started calling people in January. But before that, like I've had most of these people on my system for like, some of them for like a few years. And a lot of them actually knew who I was because they've been opening my emails for the last while. So they were like, oh yeah, I just, like, thanks for reaching out. I just saw your email last night, so I think it made me feel really comfortable, but it was super uncomfortable at the beginning. Even some days, like if I have my calling days, like I have to hype myself up a little bit. But I think I've gotten into the groove now where like, I just, if it's not me that's going to work with them, it's somebody else. And I want it to be me. So I want to build that rapport with them. I want to get to them before somebody else. So that's why, like, when I do see that they're liking properties 3 times and I'm getting those notifications, I'm like, okay, this is a phone call one. This isn't a text. And And I have noticed as well, like when I first started doing this, I was leaving voicemails, whereas now, like how I'm kind of learning, I find that they don't work. So now I actually, when I call, I don't leave a voicemail. If I've called a few times and I don't leave a voicemail, then I'll just shoot them a text message or something. And I've been getting like a pretty good response. But I'm kind of just like tweaking it as I go, just figure out kind of what works for me, and taking it from there.
So how many, I mean, you don't have to give, I'm not about, Crystal, you know this, I'm not about exact numbers on here because everybody's numbers are their own personal business. But since you really did your self-check, which was kind of in November-ish, but January is where you started putting the layers on top of the drip campaigns and the things that we've coordinated. How many approximate in a range people are you working with and closed deals that you've done? Closed, I mean, they've actually bought with you, not necessarily the property's closed.
Okay, so I have one that's closed, two closing this month. I'm working with a family now from Agent Locator, and then I have about 15 to 20 potential buyers that they are saying that within this year, they are going to look to buy. And I mean, half of them are sales as well, right? So, and these are people, like some of them, I've been speaking to them for like over a year. And I've built sort of that relationship. I had one gentleman reach out to me last night, and he's been on my system for 1,200 days. And he was just giving me an update. He said, you know, his circumstances changed. He's getting married. So now he's pushing his date. He wants to buy a house by November. But that was him reaching out to me on his own. So I have about 15 to 20 people that I have on my radar. I have them on my board. I know their potentials. I've been kind of giving them a little bit extra attention. And then I have one active listing that's Agent Locator. That'll be a buy and sell. And then buyers that I'm working with right now. And then 2 closings this month from Agent Locator.
So since January, you've got virtually 4 actual deals, and 15 to 20 in the works for probably this year. People that come on our radar are normally people that have had communication with us saying, give me another 30 days. I'm almost ready to rock and roll, or whatever it may be. So let me ask you then, Katya, from how you felt about the leads prior to you doing your self-check in November, do you believe that your mindset was key to your productivity on your leads?
Oh, absolutely. I think like the biggest thing for me was kind of putting myself out there a little bit more. And I had to kind of shift like my head a bit, because I was like, well, I'm not cold calling. These people logged onto my website. They want to buy, they likely want to buy a house, or they have some interest in real estate. So I'm not just calling them trying to be like, oh, hey, like, are you looking to sell your house? Or are you looking to buy a house? Like they have interest in that. And then I guess once I got on the phones and I started calling more, like, and learning like how receptive people actually are, it just like, I guess it shifted my mentality a little bit. And then as I've been going with it, like I said before, I've kind of realized that if it's not me that's going to sell them a house, it's somebody else. So like, why not stay on top of it and be their first choice? Right. So when I see those leads come in, I'm like, I'm going to sell this person a house. This person is my client. Like, I'm just changing the way I think. And for me, it's already like a done deal. Right. I just, if it happens, I think the other big thing for me is like at the beginning, like you'd have like these conversations and be like, okay, oh, well, this person, they don't want to buy yet. They're not ready yet. They only want to buy next year. But I think now it's all about like prospecting to me. And I mean, I don't care if I sell them a house next month. But it's having that relationship. Once they give me their address, I'm golden. I'm like, cool, I can do my pop buys. Like, they've given me permission. And now I can start nurturing that relationship. And it's a contact I didn't have before. So I think for me, I'm like, well, it's not necessarily about like immediate money. It's not about an immediate sale. It's about like that relationship, right? And it's giving me like a source to like build those relationships that I didn't have otherwise, especially like in a new area that I didn't work before.
Exactly. So, Crystal, we talked with Priscilla 2 weeks ago, who again self-checked, and has completely rocked it in regards to conversion, just like Katya. There's a common thread here that they learned that there was no choice but to step outside their comfort zone a little bit.
Yeah.
Priscilla said the same thing. Katya, calling was not easy for her by no means. And she was willing to recognize that the call doesn't have to be made on day 1. Sometimes you can make the call, sometimes, as I suggest, on day 30, once they get to know your name a little bit. Or as Katya does, she watches the relogin notifications and goes, "Oh, Buddy's on a lot. I'm going to introduce myself." So Katya, could you maybe, and I'm only thinking Crystal, and if you think of something, please pop in. Some of the questions that we tend to get a little bit over our chat is, what is your time blocking for doing your agent locator look like, as well as your calls look like? And have you noticed that you need to be always changing maybe the time of day that you call, because it can vary? So could you maybe tell the audience a little bit about the schedule?
So basically, I'm in agent locator every day. Like I find, like, and I tell like our team this all the time, it honestly could be a full-time job, because even if you like set up the like campaigns and everything, there's still so much maintenance that goes into it. And I have, like I said, I've had agent locator for like 3 years now. But I've only really started like diving in deep since like November. But I mean, I have so many older relationships there, right? So I can spend like a whole day going through each file and seeing like, oh, okay, this person, this is what they were looking for. So I'm really in there every day. I would say like what I do, I wouldn't say I necessarily like time block, but I do make sure that I do my agent locator maintenance on the daily. If I'm at home and I'm busy with kids, basically any emails that I get that this person was active, or if they like 3 times, or if they like the property, or sorry, viewed 3 times or like the property, immediately I send them an email right away. It doesn't matter what time it is. But if I'm getting emails saying that this person's active, I actually don't like even open those until I'm in the office in front of my computer. Because then what I do is I actually go into that file and make sure like everything's updated, make sure that I have my tags all lined up so I know like when I've called them, but I go in and I do a double check every single time just to make sure like that person that's active, I know what they're looking for, their criteria is correct. I've reached out to them recently. So I'm always like, I usually come in with like 10 unread emails every morning that I'm going into like 10 different people's accounts and kind of reminding myself like what they're looking for, right? Call wise, I call them during the day. For myself, like I don't have a choice really. I have 2 small children. So to call them like after 5 is like impossible. But I feel like I've had like relatively good conversations during the day. It hasn't really like affected me at all in a negative way. If anything, like what I'll do, like I mentioned before, is if I have somebody I've tried calling a few times and they're not answering, I'll just shoot them a text message. And then usually I'll get a response. I haven't had anybody rude yet, so I'll take that as a win. So that's pretty much it. But I will say I am in it like every day, whether it be for maintenance or checking on people. Like I'm in there on a daily basis. It's definitely like a full-time gig.
And for those that are watching, Katya, how do you start your conversations with those people? So somebody that you have never spoken to before, you're getting the notifications that they're active, they're liking properties. How do you introduce yourself, or how do you start that conversation with those individuals?
So I never bring up real estate. I will call them and I'll say like, hi, my name is Katya. I work with our neighborhood realty. I just wanted to check in and see how you're doing. Like, how's your day going? Are you enjoying the weather? Like basically anything except for real estate. And then like we'll usually talk for a little bit, and then I'll say, oh, like I just wanted to thank you for taking the time to log onto my website. It looks like you were looking for a property in Clarington. I just wanted to see like where you are with your search, if there's anything that I can help you with. I found the most important thing about the calls is that honestly, more than half the people that I was calling, their criteria was completely wrong. So I definitely, that also gave me a lot of value in calling, because I was like, oh, okay, well, this person's looking for literally the opposite of what their search is set up as. So that changed things as well for me.
Right.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. I never like lead. I introduce myself obviously as an agent, but I never like lead with real estate. I always ask how they are doing personally, and then I go from there. I just, for myself, like I always consider myself to be like a relationship based agent. So it doesn't feel like genuine to myself if I'm just like, hey, like, are you looking to buy or sell? Like that's just not how I am.
Mhm.
But I think with these last few months, that's like me also growing into myself and figuring out like what is like my rhythm, I guess, you know, like how to be a shark, but also genuine and also not just transactional, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Do you find, for the most part, I mean, not everybody's going to answer the phone and you don't leave messages. For the most part, do you find people are willing to share a little bit more with you once you've broke that boundary?
Yeah, I think so. Like,
Yeah.
I honestly, I was very surprised how receptive people were on the phone. But they've been like pretty open. I've honestly had quite a lot of phone calls where I start off in the office, but because I share an office with somebody else who is usually also on the phone, I end up in the back room because I'm on the phone for like 40 minutes with one person. And that happens like a lot. And I always say with real estate, like agents are like therapists, marriage counselors, like divorce lawyers, like we're everything. And honestly, sometimes you're on the phone for like an hour with a lead because they're just divulging all this information on why they're, you know, why they're looking to sell, or like why they need to buy, or why they need to live where they want to be, like just everything like you can think of. But I've had a ton of calls that are well over half an hour. So people are very open.
Wow. Do you think, because Katya, you do work on a system full of systems and plans and business plan. I know that about you and your group. When you look at how the market has shifted today and where all of our buyers and sellers are, do you feel like the Google leads are an imperative part of your business going forward?
Oh, absolutely. Like my goal this year was to do X amount of transactions, and I wanted 50% of those transactions to be new leads, like completely. Because I've always based my business, it's always been like repeats and referrals, which I'm super thankful for. But like I said, because I'm in a new area, I was like, well, I want I want half of my business to be new business. And like most of it has been new business. I think I'm actually going to end, based on my potentials down the road, I'm probably going to have like way more than 50% of my business be from agent locator, truthfully.
I agree. Crystal, like, could we just bottle her up and just, put her out? It really is, and because I know Katya, she is an incredible mother. And it's not easy to have, you have two children under the age of
4-year-old and 18-month-old.
Yeah. I
They're
mean,
busy.
and I'll give her this. She's at the office pretty much every day for the hours that she can do as a mom, and she is incredibly focused on her business. And I think that there's a lot for all of us to learn about the value of the leads and the value of going, okay, if I'm not getting the results that I want, I know I've got to do some changes. And I think that, Katya, you are an incredible example of someone that's got a lot on her plate, but is still absolutely rocking the business. And you're working all four pillars of your business. It's not even just we're just talking about leads. I mean, I could go on forever about how she works her past clients, her sphere of influence, right? Katya, it's not easy to get addresses from agent locator leads until you actually go do a listing presentation or you're actually doing an offer with them, right? How were you able to get their address?
Honestly, it's just like through conversations. Like I'll be on the phone with them and start like, okay, so this lady that I spoke to recently. She's in Clarington. She's always lived in Clarington, and she was telling me, they're not in a rush. This is their budget. They just want to find like the right home. And then I asked her, oh, well, where, like, because I live in Clarington, so I was like, oh, well, where, like, are you located? And she's like, she told me her address and whatnot. And it was just like, it wasn't like it's not like a script. It's not like, okay, well, what's your budget? Where are you living? What's your address? It's just like a natural part of the conversation. Like it usually ends up in, oh, well, where are you currently living? Like, oh, you want to move to Port Hope? Are you currently in Port Hope? And like people usually will give their addresses. And then, yeah,
That's
like
great.
it's kind of been like a natural thing.
Well, that's a huge accomplishment because that's not easy.
Yeah,
to
trust
do
me.
over the
When I
phone
get
when
an
somebody's
address, I'm like, yes.
Yeah, you're happy Dan. There was another thing that I noticed too, everybody, and I wonder if you guys did too. When Katya was going, okay, I've got to make these calls, and just so you know, I mean, she would come into my office and go, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I'm really uncomfortable. I don't know that I can do it. I'm gonna, you know what I mean? It was not easy, but she started at the end. Right. She had 3 to 4 years of leads. And she said, I started going on the last page and just talking to them. There is so much that we can get from our older leads if we just make a phone call to them. Right. And I think that that's a huge thing. I think sometimes it's easy when we develop a lot of pages in our dashboard that we forget about page number 99. Right?
Yeah,
Like,
no, I would definitely.
I got to do the last one. I've got to work my way there, and plus still keep an eye on the relogin notifications so she doesn't miss those new people coming on. But let me switch it up a little bit, Katya. And if you wake up in the morning, the kids are giving you a real hard time, and you walk in and it's raining and it's disgusting and you just, right? Do you do calls when you're kind of not at your 100% ability, or do you reschedule and maybe go, okay, today might not be a good day?
That's like a hard thing to answer because I feel like it can be easy to make excuses and be like, oh, I don't feel like I can have a conversation. But I feel like a lot of the times, and like my teammate who sits with me will attest to this, but I'll come in and I'll be like, oh my God, like the kids is like, like war at home this morning, like whatever. My mood is like completely off. And then I make a call and I have like one good phone call and I'm like good again, right? So like it's definitely easier to make the calls if you're feeling the day. But I mean, I have 2 small kids, so sometimes I'm sleep deprived. So it's not like I'm feeling the day every day.
Right.
So I don't know, like I feel like it's just pushing myself to do it whenever, and like it usually ends up pretty well. Like I did a couple weeks ago, it was the last thing I wanted to do, but I was like, no, I have to call this person. They're very active. And I was on the phone with her for like an hour.
Wow.
So like, I don't know. I just call when you can. I don't think it's
That's a huge mindset ability. Like that's huge, because a lot of the professionals will say it's okay to take a day if you're not, whatever the situation is, you don't want to come across that way. But I think what I hear you saying is, yeah, I do have bad days because I got 2 small kids and, I'm up all night, but I'm still going to attempt to make that call. Still going to try, right? And then you go ahead and do it, and then you get rewarded because you end up with a good conversation. And I like that you said it's easy to make excuses, right? So just give yourself that little push. And that's a hard thing for a lot of us to learn how to do. It's a hard thing to walk into your office, whether or not it's your home office or here at the brokerage. It's difficult to leave your personal behind those doors, right? So what is it that drives you to be able to go, no, I'm not doing this. I'm going to make that call, or I am going to go to work?
Well, I think like for one is like my why, which is my kids. Like I love to travel. I want to have like a good life. I want them to have a good life. Like I want to be self-sufficient. And I think for myself, like where my head's like really changed is if it's going to be another agent. So some days I come in and I'm like, okay, well, I'm calling all day. And I'll sit at my desk with my AirPods in and I will call for the majority of the day. But other days it's like, you know what, I'm not feeling it, but I'm still going to call. I have to call that are very active. Right. And it's like, it's kind of just like, you know, if they're on my site, they're probably on somebody else's site as well. Right. So I want to be their first point of contact, not somebody else. Right. So it's like that, or like, I definitely have that urgency when I see people that like, I would say like need guidance in the industry, like that I feel need my help. Like I will always prioritize them. And no matter what I'm doing, like, even if I'm not in the mood, like they will be my first call. Absolutely. But then obviously I have other days where I'm here like for hours on the phone. But I definitely like, I mean, my kids push me like, and you know, I want to do well and I enjoy this job. I like helping, like I genuinely love real estate. And so for me, like the last few clients I've met through Agent Locator, like I forget they're from Agent Locator because we've meshed so well. And they're just people that I will continue to have in my life forever. Like we've just formed such a great relationship. So I love like getting to meet like all these different types of people that I like wouldn't have met otherwise.
Wow. That's pretty cool, isn't it? It was
pretty
like
cool.
Priscilla 2 weeks ago ended up doing a ton of business from an Agent Locator lead that won the lottery. Wasn't it like 30-40 million dollars?
Yeah.
Like, no, seriously.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and didn't know until she took her out to show her houses. And she was like, yeah, by the way, I'm a lottery winner. I won 40 mil. Right. And she was an Agent Locator. Like, you never know. Don't ever say these leads are no good, because everybody Google searches when they want, you know, buy or sell or look. Yeah. Well, listen, I mean, Katya, I know you're probably sick of me saying this, but I'm a big fan. I'm a huge, huge fan, and I'm very proud of you because I know how difficult it can be some days when you come in and your kid's giving you a hard time before you get to the office and you're like, oh my gosh, right? But then get into work mode, right?
Aside from you getting the notifications about activity, what are you doing to make sure you're not letting them slip through cracks? So, because again, could be a lead, like if I say, hey, you know, I'm probably not going to move till next spring, all of a sudden I drop off as far as activity. So that's not pinging in your ear. What are you doing to make sure that these people aren't slipping through the cracks? So what does your follow-up look like with these individuals?
So one thing that I've like really started utilizing is like the task feature on Agent Locator. So I always like, I set tasks. So if I speak to somebody on the phone and they say, oh no, I'm not looking yet, call me back in 2 to 3 months, or I'm looking in 2 to 3 months, or I'm going to look in the summer. I have tasks set. Like I got a notification this morning via email saying that I had a task due for this lead, right? I have to follow up with them again because I spoke to them 2 months ago. But I do also do like my monthly newsletters in there. I send it out so I know that they're still getting something from me. And then, like I mentioned, the ones that, you know, they're not ready just yet, I not move them over, but I duplicate it to my other CRM. And then I do probably like, I don't know, at least 6 pop-bys a year for my clients. So I move them there and I include them on there. I do soft touches. So I don't bombard them. I don't I send them my monthly newsletter, but I'm not sending them mail outs yet. I just do my pop-bys here and there for them if I have their address. If I don't have their address, I'll just text them and be like, hey, I just wanted to like check in, see how you're doing, but not about real estate.
Perfect.
Just how are you doing?
So what she's doing is she's not forgetting about them, no matter how many leads build up, because there's always a buildup of leads. And you're relying on the task, you know, to remind you to check in on Sue and Bob and Joe, right?
Yeah.
So I think
use like the tasks and like the notes section.
Katya, do you have any takeaways for everybody? Any words of final advice that you want to share?
I think the biggest thing for me was like, just because I was nervous to like call and like reach out to people, is just like telling yourself that they are interested in real estate. Like they came to you. right? You're not cold calling. So
Yeah.
I think like that's like probably one of the biggest things that helped me. Because I was obviously like really nervous to like reach out to them, and I didn't want to get rejected and whatnot. But I think that was like the biggest thing, is that I just like kept telling myself they came to me and they want to know more about real estate, and I can help them. I can educate them like if they need it. And, you know, like they came to me. It's not
Right.
cold calling. It's not door knocking. Like I'm not guessing if they're interested. They are interested. So I think for me, that was like honestly like the biggest thing to get out of my head. So
yeah.
And
don't ask the question that leads to that they're not interested. I see all the time, they're not interested. What are you asking these people that's what they're coming back at you with? They've already signed up on your website. They're already getting listings. So I'm not sure what's being said. And of course, it's people that aren't recording their conversations, so you can't actually hear what's being said. Yeah. But it's like, no one should be like, I'm not interested. That should, like, that phrase should almost not come out of their mouth unless you're trying to sell them on going to look at houses this weekend, or get into that CMA right away, right? Where you're coming from that sales approach rather than a customer service approach.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's why, like, I don't normally like lead with real estate as well. Like I normally just ask them how they're doing, or like something relevant of what's going on.
Yeah.
So it doesn't seem like so transactional, which I feel like for me has worked, and it's like authentic to how I am as an agent, because I am a very like relationship based agent. So it kind of like mirrors like how I actually work. So
it's true. Helps. And you're doing good, kiddo.
Yeah, I'm trying.
You're doing good. This has been amazing. I think I'm excited, Crystal, to showcase some, you know, great realtors that just kind of went, all right, let's figure out what I'm doing wrong and I'm going to make it happen.
Yeah.
So again, before we sign off, Katya, thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing your experience.
Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. Mindset is everything, correct?
It is.
Yeah.
Absolutely it is.
Never forget it. We got to remind ourselves of it every day. It's a tough world out there. All right. Well, I'm in a bidding war and I've got agents calling me.
There you go. Awesome. Well, thanks, Katya. Thanks, Tara, as always. And thanks, everyone that joined us. We'll see you all again in a couple weeks.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.